Hello and welcome to this slightly left field piece of content because it's based on a children's story, but I think that it's a really interesting one. It came to me on my run this morning when I was thinking about where I wanted to go next in my business. And one of the things that I'm reading a lot with my kids at the moment, more so my daughter who's nearly 2, is The Hungry Caterpillar. And it's a book that she's really resonated with. She's really into it. She loves the kind of pattern. She knows what's coming next. And it's a really great, solid, the publishers don't need to know this. They've sold it worldwide millions of times over, I'm sure. But it really made me think about entrepreneurship in relation to the hungry caterpillar. So the hungry caterpillar, if you don't know the story, he starts as an egg and then cracks and becomes a tiny little caterpillar, eats lots of stuff, basically to the point where he becomes sick, and then he has to have a lie down and a lovely green leaf, and then hides in a cocoon before eventually moving into a beautiful butterfly. Now, I want you to think about this process in terms of your own business, and I see this kind of cycle showing up for me too. So quite often I've noticed a moment in my life, in my career, when I've needed to crack through, where I've been kind of rattling around in the same space, or it's getting to the point where it's a bit uncomfortable, it's a bit claustrophobic, but it feels scary because the crack opening up that door, you don't necessarily know what's on the other side. So firstly, realizing and recognizing if you are at that moment where you go, I've got to make the first crack. I've got to take a peek. I've got to have a look and see what's out there. And sometimes for some people, they just need to smash the whole thing up, change everything about. That doesn't necessarily work for me because it puts me in a sense of just feeling, so out of my comfort zone. But maybe it's that moment for you in terms of your business, in terms of your personal brand, where you just need to crack open the next bit. Go into a bit more detail here. What is that for you? What do you need to crack open? What do you need to shift? Where do you need to make moves? The second part of that story, this often shows up, so the caterpillar kind of consuming lots of things. And this caterpillar is not just consuming fruit here, as we see in the book. It's a cupcake, it's a slice of Swiss cheese, it's, a sausage, all kinds of things. So it's very much going through that process of consuming all of the things without necessarily knowing if they're right for them. And I've certainly felt like this in my business, where I've gone on a sort of learning journey where I can't get enough and I'm just gobbling it all up. And yes, there is an enjoyment in that. And yes, I'm learning lots, but there does become a point, and I see it in my clients as well. And we often talk about it in sessions where I go, I feel really overwhelmed. I don't know what to do next. I've overdone it now. I feel a bit sick, and none of this is kind of helpful. So there is always that point in a meal, isn't there, where you're like, oh, I've really enjoyed that. That was really tasty. And then you might get to that stage where it's like, oh, the enjoyment is being taken out. I couldn't eat another thing. You feel a bit stuck, a bit static. So I want you to see and recognize maybe in yourself if you're at that point. If you're at that point where you're just consuming and you're not doing anything with it. And actually what it's doing is becoming stifling. So notice that. Also notice if you need to have a lie down. That point where you have to go inside your cocoon, where you have to really reflect. And I do this all the time, where I go, especially if I know that I'm on the verge of the butterfly moment, I know that I have to go inside, I have to turn off notifications, I have to get really quiet, I have to rest, I have to feel like I can process and digest everything that I've learned and get small to get big. Now, if this is you, please don't feel like you have to skip the stage where you're like, I just have to be a bit of a butterfly quick. I just have to get something out there. Sometimes you do need a bit of processing time. Sometimes you do need to give yourself a bit of wiggle room. And I see sometimes, especially on live coaching calls, where if it's a group session and the coach will be saying, could you do this by next week? And the person might be going, I mean, I could, but it would mean me not really going to bed. And the coach might be going, great, okay, fantastic, get it out there. The smallest viable product, do it. And my argument is like, what do you need? What is the process that you need to do in order to have that first flight? So there's that moment, especially where you need to get quiet before you emerge. But also with the butterfly moment, with the final reveal, with the launch, or when the money comes in, or when you do the gig, I want to give yourself that time to actually enjoy the process of being that butterfly, of feeling like you can explore and you're free and you're just in the moment of color and summer and all of those things. Because the temptation so often, by the time you've got to that flight moment where you're the butterfly, is to go, right, I better go back in another egg now and do something else. I've got to crack something else open. Like, I can't let myself enjoy this moment. So this is a bit of a weird, funky analogy, but I hope you'll take some moments from it and really recognize where you are up to or where you need to shift. Now, this might not be something that happens on a yearly basis where you're like, okay, from January to March, I'm in that kind of egg moment where I'm waiting to crack through and I don't get to be a butterfly until October. This might work in terms of your week. You might be at different stages in different projects, for example, and in different areas of your life. So if you're in, there might be parts of your business, for example, which just constantly live in butterfly state, where you're just like, this is great, I can fly, I know it works, I'm just enjoying the process. But there might be something else where you're just going, it's just, what is this thing? I've got to make some moves. I've got to figure out how this is going to look. So just pay attention, essentially. Just have a look and see what's going on, and then get the support, get the things in place that you need to support you. And that might not necessarily be a coach. I might be able to help you, but equally it might be it might be like a meal delivery service where you're like, I've got loads of things trying to hatch at the moment, but I know that in order to be in my butterfly state of feeling really good, I need to eat some really good things. So it could be so many different things, but I hope that has been useful for you. Just to summarize, it's about that hatching moment. It's about then noticing where you're consuming, and you get to that really tricksy moment where you're enjoying it, but now you know you need to do something, and then going back into the cocoon and then coming out as that beautiful butterfly. But I tell you what, also, and this is something that book doesn't always say, all of the stages are beautiful. It's not just a case where you have to wait until the end point. Sometimes those moments where you're in an incubator or you're hiding away or you're taking care of things, you can gain so much from that as well. So I hope that has been useful. As always, I would love to hear all your thoughts. Subscribe, rate, review, all of that good stuff. And I will see you in the next episode. Bye.